Rồi. Okay, guys, I have good afternoon to all of you, all. And we're starting the second session today. And what I'll do is there are two presentations. I'll make two small presentations. The one is about contracts. Other one is about sale of goods. These are basic fundamentals of business law. When we are talking about business, when we are talking about law enforcement and things like that, these are basic things. Once I do this, and I'll send you a message that most probably in this week, we will have another class. And on that particular class, I will explain it to you how we are going to conduct all the assessments now for this semester. Because I don't want with the university or Arsenal doesn't want to put all the assessments in one particular corner end of this uh, semester, because then if all the subjects when we start doing it, you will find it very difficult to manage your time and things like that. So what we're trying to do is break up all collect all the information about all the assessments of what we're doing for all your classes, and arrange that in a manner where you can spend enough time on each and everything. So that is what our plan at the moment is. By next session, that is within next 2-3 days, when we have a session, um, I will take you through what we are trying to do. Sometimes what happens, we don't finish. Generally, when we have a class, it is about 1.5 hours class when it comes to in a classroom session. But on a online session, what I'm trying to do is we are trying to do someone about 45 minutes in a session, because the interaction in between the students and the lecturer, whoever is doing, is very low, right? We don't talk much. We don't see each and every one of us, right? You may see me, but I have no chance of seeing you in this particular software, in this application. So what happens, it is slightly we have to change in our types, the way we are doing in our lectures according to online. So this is what we are breaking the class into two. It will be much more comfortable. What you can do is, say in every 15 minutes, since this is going in for about 40 minutes, and I will finish that in 35-40 minutes. We'll keep for another 5 minutes for question and answers. And if you need, you can type anything and send, I can answer you. Or else you can contact me through my email, and we will have a chat, or give me a call. I think that most of you all know my telephone number. I will give you my telephone number. If you want, you can keep it. If there's any sort of questions, especially from next week, next session, um, this is my telephone number, and you can call. So whatever the thing you want, whatever the support you want, please give me a call or drop a mail once in a week. Explain you based on any lectures, or if after explaining how the assessment is going to be done. Now, when we look at today, the one session we are going to do, there are two sessions. That is, we will finish in one session today. Try to finish in one. That is the The law of sale of goods, right? Now, say why sale of goods is quite important, right? In last session also, I would have mentioned something in the class in this session. Now, when we talk about sale of goods, right? You take an organization, a small organization or a big organization. Any organization is producing something and they're selling it. They are giving it to another person for an exchange, right? Most of the time that exchange commodity is money, so it can be a tangible good or it can be a service. So when the services are produced and sold to make money, there are NGOs, there are non-profitable organizations and things like that. But when we talk about commercial environment, which we are going to be in, most of us are going to be in, or most of our time is going to be spent on commercial environment. So in this commercial environment, organizations are a commercial entity. They have inputs and they have to sell that note on output with a profit. So it's a simple theory of any business. So when we do that particular thing, you buy goods, you manufacture goods, or you're producing a service and giving it to that, there are two people involved, or minimum two people involved. It can be one person to another person. It can be one person to so many people. It can be so many people to one person, or an organization to another organization to so many organizations. So the business can be in between one or two, or one or many to one. We call in different names: business to business entities. We call it business to consumer entities. There are so many ways that we discuss um, these transactions or the model of the transactions. In every model, what happens is there is a party involved. One party is a seller, another party is a buyer. Now, in this premises only, in this premise only, we really talk about what is this sale of goods. How do you define sale of goods? Now, in this after in this particular session, you will understand what do you mean by the contract of sale of goods. What are the characteristics of those in a contract? Right, in a sales contract. Now, what are the characteristics? What is the difference in between sale and an agreement to sell? There are two elements we talk about. One is sales, other one is the agreement to sell. Now, all this sales will happens in a particular environment, in a circumstance. Understand the nature in a circumstance of the insolvency. Insolvency means a company is bankrupt, they're closed. In a situation like that, in a circumstances like that, what happens to sales and what happens to a agreement of sales? Then we talk about the types of goods in a contract. Right? There are different types of goods we can mention. We will learn about it. Now, all these learning outcomes will give you a basic understanding of what is sale of goods and how it is going to be done. Okay. Now, a contract of sale of goods. A contract is a seller. There is a seller and there is a buyer. Right? We take a simple model. There is a seller and there is a buyer. So the seller decides to sell or transfer some goods to the buyer for an exchange. That you call it sale. That exchange generally happens for money. Right? Now the money is the fundamental worldwide accepted commodity for any type of sales exchange. So we call this man the seller and this man a buyer. What happens is the goods get transferred in between these two people. So the contract in between these two, a seller transfers or agree to transfer the property or a good to the buyer for a price. So when you talk about a contract, the contract is a seller transfers or agree to transfer. I'm saying, you look, you buy this, I take the money, that is, I'm transferring, or I'm, calling you and telling you, here, look, my dear friend, I have, so much of, goods in my hand, right, in my go down, it's about 1 million worth. I will transfer this, good, tomorrow. I mean, you buy it at this particular price. That is an agreement to sell. So, in a contractual terminology or in the contractual understanding, we cover sales, selling, as well as agreement for agreement to sell also. Now, look at the characteristics of a contract. When we make a contract in between these entities, right, individuals or entities, what are the things in these characteristics? What are the characteristics of this contract? As I told you, there are minimum two parties to it, known as a seller and a buyer. And the transfer of property happens in between. So the property can be goods. It contains both the sale and an agreement to sell. Now, again, I'll say the characteristic of a contract. There can be a sale or there is an agreement to sell. There can be goods transfer or properties or any other assets transfer. So there is a transfer mechanism there. And there are two parties now, buyers and sellers. So when we talk about a sales contract or an agreement to sell or selling, there are two people. There is transfer of property, assets, or goods, and either it can be a sale or it can be an agreement to sell. One more thing, no formalities to be observed. No proper form the seller or the buyer can make the offer and form a contract. See, what happens is no formalities to be observed in the sense there is nothing called a particular form the seller or the buyer can make the offer and form a contract. Now it's like this there is nothing there is plenty of ways you can form a contract. I can give you a call. I can buy. I can write to you. I can send a message through someone. It is not that this contract has to be made only by one to one or through a mediator. It is not like that. In any form, a sale contract can be made initially. Okay, these are the fundamental characteristics of a goods of sale of goods. Okay, now sale and agreement to sell. There are two terms now. Okay? One is sale, other one is agreement to sell. Now you look at, you take a situation one, circumstances one. Transfer of the property. That means I have an asset. I have a land or a house or this or that asset. I'm transferring that property to another person, a buyer. In that situation, what is defined by sale is immediate seize of title from the seller and the ownership becomes the buyer's. In simple words, we call it transfer of title. Now here the title means the ownership. Now say take for it this house, right, where I live, of the house or proprietor of this house. When I talk about selling, I give this and take this money from someone. At that moment, the transfer happens. The title of that is transferred. Now, take for instance, you are going to a Barnes showroom or Singer showroom. You are buying a TV. Say 150,000 rupees, you pay 150,000. You take the TV. The ownership of that particular TV All this time in what was in the showroom becomes yours. Immediately the ownership has been transferred. This is what we call immediate transfer of title. That ownership has been transferred. That is what we call sale. Then what is agreement to sell? Agreement to sell is now that's a nice word. We in Latin, what is the sale is known as just in rem, right? I send you this particular presentation sign with you. You can always see that the just in rem in Latin means right to a thing, the ownership to a thing, right to a thing. I have the authority or the right over a property, right? That is what happens when it comes to transfer of title immediately. That we call sale in English. Then we talk about agreement to sell. That is also sometimes forms the contract. Ownership of the goods transferred to the buyer at the time of the contract. I agree with you that I'm going to sell you my what do you call property. You are paying in advance to me 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is, or 100,000 or whatever it is. But we say, okay, you come and pay the balance money on such and such a date, or you are going to lease me this particular property. So we sign a contract to sell at the time the money is paid. It is an agreement. Now, the ceases the ownership of the seller at the time of contract is signed, not at the time the discussion is taking place, not at the time the advance is paid. That we call just in personam. In Latin, we call it just in personam. That means right against specific person. So there are two huge meaning in different these two: sale and agreement to sell. Sale is transfer of ownership or title then and there. Agreement to sell, the transfer of no title happens only when you sign the contract. By agreement, by verbal agreement, or by paying an advance, the transfer doesn't happen. The transfer happens only at the time of signing of a contract. So this is the huge difference in between sale and agreement to sell. When it comes to legal issues and things like that, these are the things very widely discussed. Why we go into that type of arguments and things like that, sometimes we don't very clearly distinguish in between sale and an agreement to sell. Then you look at that is the scenario one. In a scenario two, we talk about risk of losses. We talk about another term. We talk about prima facie principle. Now, prima facie means by the look of it, we think it's right, or your decision, or your at that particular time, what you think is on the first impression. So your discussions or all your thoughts and things like that is burst on prima facie on the first impression. After going through all those things, you may change that particular first impression. So when we are talking about certain things, right, the prima facie, the term prima facie or the first impression becomes very important. We tell you how it happens when it comes, how it applies when it comes to sale and agreement to sell. The loss comes to the buyer even though the product is not delivered in yet. Now, when it comes to sale, what happens in a sale? Immediately, the title is transferred to you. I'm selling it to you. So immediately you come and sit with me and say, okay, right, fine, right. I'll give you this new stock. And so you have been given this particular product. or that no property or a car, I will say. Now you take it home and find you look by the look of it, everything was fantastic. Good in a painting work, good horn is working, the lights are working, all those things. But when you went home and when you got a particular mechanic to come and look at the engine and things like that, he will come and say, "My God, no, this is a hopeless car. The engine is in not good condition." But if the sale has happened, the transfer of the title has already happened. You have already transferred the ownership of the car to you. So if you have bought that with your first impression, that is what we call prima facie. The loss is yours. Loss is the buyer's. Okay, because the transfer of title has not been. When it comes to the agreement to sell, if the title is about to be transferred to the buyer, the loss has to be borne by the seller. Now, take for instance, that I have a car. I don't know right now. Somebody came me, or I'm having that in my garage for about last 5 years. So I thought of selling it off. Somebody comes and you come and say, "Okay, this car is not good. I'm going to buy." You have not bought it. So I said, "Okay, and I will send it to you by next week." I have promised now that I'm going to sell it to you. You haven't paid me in advance also. It's okay. But then you come and in a check, or even I check, right, with the garage man and found the engine is already dead, right? That has to be replaced. Now, in this particular circumstances, the sale has not taken place. The title has not been transferred. So the loss is mine. Seller's loss. So when you look at these two examples, how these two are distinguished, sale and agreement to sell is, in a sale, the ownership has already transferred. In agreement to sell, the ownership is not being transferred. That means in a sales, the in a sale, the ownership is in the buyer's hand. In agreement to sell, the ownership is still in the seller's hand. Okay, that is unique and different. You should understand. We look at circumstances 3. Now, first one, what we talked about in a personal situation, transfer of the property. Second scenario, what we talked about is risk of loss. Transfer of the property risk. Third one, we talk about consequences of breach. Consequence means may action result, right? That is what you call the pratipala, consequence. Breach means breaking a particular agreement. So what happens when you break an agreement? Now what is the result? Right? In the sale and agreement of sale, we look at it. If the buyer breaches the seller, can sue the buyer for the price. Now say I'm the buyer. I said right now I'm going to buy, but I'm not. No, I said I'll come and buy now. I'm going to give you the money, but I'm not giving you the money. The transaction happened. Even if the transfer has not happened, say, if it is in the seller's possession, when the title is transferred, even if the goods are in seller's possession, still I can file a case against you because you breached the law. Maybe on price, maybe on other thing. I say like so that is a breach of contract. I can file a case against you. So in a sale, be mindful that when the breach of consequences can go against the buyer. Right? If the buyer has not done what is his part. In agreement to sell, seller can only sue for the damages even the goods possession is with the buyer. What happens now? Say you have been paid the money or you have not paid the money. Agreement is signed. You have taken in the goods. You have not paid, or you have not paid. You have not worked according to the contract of one thing. I can't claim the whole thing from you. The seller can only sue for the damages. I can sue only for the damage. For this particular part is not done. Okay, may contract may part take a from the buyer, so I can claim only in that particular part. So when you really look at the good the whole sale in the contract, very deeply define what is a sale and a agreement to sell. In both situations, there is buyer and seller's responsibilities, and the buyers and sellers liabilities. Who is no wrong and who is right? කාගේ පැත්තේද the law enforcement නීතිය කාගේ පැත්තේද තියෙන්නේ කාටද මොන වගේ action එක ගන්න පුළුවන් right now what kind of an action taken by a buyer or seller is very clearly defined. Okay, these are the three different scenarios or in three different views. What will happen to a seller, what will happen to a buyer when it is a sale and when it is a agreement to sell is very clearly different. Okay, guys, I'll give you about 2-3 minutes. Is there any questions you have? You can type. You can just type. Say if you don't have a question, say that you don't have a question. Then we can continue. There's no problem about it. Loshana, any questions? I can see only your name right there. Yeah, Ilma, any questions? I can say Akram Kiza, right? Any questions, guys? Okay, let's go further, right? Look at the circumstances for the fourth scenario. In this particular case, we talk about the right to resale. The fourth scenario. It's not the fourth scenario actually. The first one we talked about, what you call transfer of property. When you are transferring the property, what happens? The risk or loss, what happens? On the third time, the consequences of breach, what happens? Now we are talking about the right to resale. The right to inner sale, since the title is transferred under the to the seller, since the title is transferred under the just in rem principle, the seller cannot resell the product to third party. Now, I have transferred the title to you. You came and paid the money. You have said that you are going to take these particular goods today in the evening. So that particular thing is closed. The sale hasn't happened. I have given everything that the title is transferred, the ownership is transferred to you. Whether the good is in my custody or not, I can go and sell it to somebody else. Which means, and I'll give you an example like that, right? You come and say, right, you are going to buy my car for about say 500,000 or 1 million rupees, and you are paid that particular money, but the car is here, right? You say you come and take, you come with the driver, you are going to take it tomorrow. I have given all the papers and things like that. It is registered in your name. Or I have given in writing, I'm selling, this car to Ms. Lochana Rajkumar. Done. Now tomorrow somebody comes and say you are not taken the car. Tomorrow somebody comes and say, look, I'll pay you 7 lakhs and you give me the car. I can't think of, I don't have a legal right to think or action. It doesn't matter. I will sell the car to him for 7 lakhs. I'll keep 2 lakhs. And when Lochana comes tomorrow, I'm going to tell her, you look girl, something happened to the car, I gave it to someone, yeah, your money, 500,000. That is against law. Why? You have the legal right to claim the car. You are the legal owner of the car, right? Because the ownership has been transferred, or we say the title has been transferred. Right? So I don't have a right to sell it to a third party when a sale has not happened. In agreement to sell situation circumstances, if the goods are remain with the seller, it is with me. I can sell you to another party who doesn't have the idea previously. He doesn't. I can sell, but still the buyer can file a case against me. If how it happens is, I'm talking to you. It's about to be transferred to you. You have done so much of work and things like that, and you are paid in advance, or you come and say you are going to collect it and all those things. While those things for agreement of sale is being happened, agreement of sale has been happened. Only the sale is not happened. Without your knowledge, I go and negotiate with another party during that particular time, and him doesn't know that I'm dealing with you. The third party doesn't know I'm dealing with you, and I sold the property or asset to him. That is a breach of contract. You can file a case against me because you started working on acquiring the title. So without these two parties, without your knowledge, for whatever the reason, I cannot go and sell it to a third party. So the right of resale is limited to the seller in either cases. Right? In either cases, I don't have the buyer, but the seller doesn't have the right. Right? Then we look at the insolvency of buyer before he pays for the goods. Insolvency means, right? Say I'm going to buy something. I have a business, or I'm working for a company and things like that. I am going to a particular place and I said I'm going to buy this. But by the time I came home, my business is lost, or my job is gone, and I don't have money, or so I have right now insolvency. Insolvency is bankruptcy, no money, in simple terms, right? Before I pay the money, I got insolvent, bankrupt. In these circumstances, in an insolvent situation, the seller should deliver the goods to the receiver or assignee. If the sale has happened, if the payment has been made, whether the business is there, whether he has lost the business or irrespective of that, because the sale has been made, that goods has to be delivered to the receiver or the buyer, or somebody on behalf of him, or somebody he has assigned, the goods has to be delivered. Buyer has the seller has no choice in that. But what happens in the circumstance of agreement to sell? The seller may refuse to deliver the goods to the official assignee because the ownership has not been passed to him. He says, okay, no, I'm not going to give the stocks to him. I can keep it because the monies are not paid, or the title is not passed to him. They can always make that particular decision. That is in a situation, in a circumstances where the insolvency of buyer before he pays the goods. Okay. Then look at insolvency of seller. If the buyer has already paid the price, in that scene, the buyer is entitled to recover the goods from the official assignee. Now say, now earlier what we talked about, the buyer, the person who bought is lost, bankrupt. Now we are talking about the person who is selling is in a bankrupt. In the situation where the seller is bankrupt, in the circumstance of a sale, the buyer is entitled to recover the goods from the seller or from the assignee. If the buyer has the goods, the seller has the goods at his home, the buyer through legal means and has a right to go and claim it. Okay, because he has the legal the ownership is in his particular name. When it comes to the in the agreement of sale, buyer can claim only a rateable dividend. The buyer in an agreement, they say he can't claim the goods because we agreed to sell, we agreed to buy, so he can't claim the goods. But the losses what he made because of that. Now I'll explain that. Now what happens is I agreed to buy a machinery from a company or another person. He says he's playing lease and things like that. His business is taken loan and things like that, right? But he's quite okay. He said, right, I have old machine, I'm going to give it to you. So I went and paid the money on this, a part of that because I want to start a business. So I bought a building, I bought all these things. So I'm supposed to bring in this particular machine into my factory and start manufacturing. The seller got lost, bankrupt. The bank has in the compensation all is properties. So if the machinery becomes property of the bank, they say that is none of our business. I can't claim that machine, but I can claim the damage during this particular period. I have lost so much of money. So the bias in a claim can be the loss during that particular period, not the goods. So this is how when the seller gets in a bankrupt and how the law works, right? Then we look at the kinds of goods in contract. There are the goods are mentioned in different terms. One is existing goods. Existing goods means the goods are physically in existence in seller's ownership, in under his custody, or he owns those products and is physically available. Right now, what you say, I'm going to buy a car from him. He has a car, his own car. It is there at that particular time, physically available. That we call existing goods. Now, when you are entering in a contract of sale, we call it specific goods, goods identified and agreed upon at a time of the making or the contracted of the sale. That means මේ කාර් එක තමයි මට ඕනේ, මේ පාට තමයි මට ඕනේ, මේ ඉන ස්ටයිල් එක තමයි මට ඕනේ කියලා we have specified everything. Specified everything. So if that is existing goods, under existing goods is specific goods. Then there is another under existing goods we talk about another one called unascertained goods. Goods not separately identified and agreed upon at the time of the making of the contract of sale. Now we say, okay, I will buy you a Toyota car from you. Now Toyotas having so many things. What is in my mind is you are going to give me a Toyota Prius, but it's not specified. It is unascertained. You have the right to give me whatever the Toyotas you have. It can be a third, second-hand car, third-hand car, so very old one, because the specification of that particular article, vehicle or any asset, is not specified. Okay. So this is what in existing goods now we talk about specific goods and unascertained goods. Okay. Now, when we talk about specific goods, when we talk about very much on vehicles, and if you're going to import vehicles and all those things, we talk about very specific. This is the color I want. This is the car I want. This is what the brake system should be. All the additions and all those things we say. But if you have mass produced goods, right? I want 100 metric tons of bolts and nuts, right? We know it's bolts and nuts, but the ascertained specification of that can be. Okay, so that is existing goods. Other one is we talk about future goods. Future goods are goods to be manufactured or produced or acquired by the seller after making the contract of sale. Then sometimes we go and say, okay, um, I want, say, we go to a manufacturing plant, right? We go to juice, we say, okay, I want orange juice. Orange juice is made then and given. So it's a future good. I'll not go and tell right now I want a particular designer table or sofa set. This is the size of it, this is the color of it, this is what we order and we place that order, they deliver it after about 1 month. Future goods. Or we'll go and say, right now, say, I want a particular TV like that Aban say right now, we'll import this and give you future goods. That particular good is not in the owner's possession. Right, the companies or the owner's possession. That is future goods. Then we talk about contingent goods, the acquisition of which by the seller depends upon an uncertain contingency. In the sense, the seller can place an order. I mean, he will say, right, on this in a particular circumstances, what he'll give you, but on an uncertain contingency. If this happens, if this permits, make a unana, make a dendapula. I'll say, I'll check with our factory whether they can produce this in 2 weeks. Uncertain contingency. If they give a call and find out make a factory but get a delivery that is future goods. Certain. I don't know factory produce we don't know what is the raw material we have. After the pulu annan, they will deliver that in 2 weeks time. Uncertain contingency. Now you look at now guys, these are the ways the what do you call the law of sales of goods is defined. There is sales, there is agreement to sell. There is a buyer, there's a seller, there's a transfer, and these are controlled by various basic laws. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I have put both these things into your Moodle. You can go through it. You have my email and a call. You just say send me a mail or a call and say if there's any questions or whatever it is. That's no problem. By chance, immediately if I don't answer, I will answer within say maybe about 1 or 2 hours, right? Or in the following day. Next class, most probably I think I have planned it within next 3 days because of like what I said, we're having in a 45 minutes class because then it is not boring. You also can think. And next class, I will start with what is the assessment is going to be, and now we are going to do that, and now we are going to prepare you for that, right? Because sometimes the law and things like that is slightly different than other subjects, so you need a little bit of support on those things. We are willing to give you guys. Look after yourselves, look after your family, and stay safe. This is the time when we got to be more careful than any other time. All the best to you, and thank you.
whatever.